Welcome to this episode of the Mel Lawson Show. I'm very honoured to have an Olympic medalist here as my guest today, Leon Taylor, who is also a friend of mine and our first male guest on the show. So welcome, Leon.
Thanks, Mel. Lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for coming along. I'm not going to do the intro because I think people want to hear your amazing story from you. So how did you become an Olympic medalist?
Well, by accident. Well, I guess there's some truth in that. I guess the interesting thing is that we all have dreams when we're very young, become an astronaut, become an entrepreneur, become a YouTuber. I'm not sure what the latest dreams are. For me, I remember clearly watching the Olympic Games on the TV when I was just 6 years old. Now, I'd not really seen as many sports as there was. And for example, I'd never heard of so many countries. There's over 200 countries that compete in the Olympic Games. So I'm 6, only knew about 4. I know about 8 now, maybe. So I'm glued to the screen. There's so much action. And there's a moment that I remember so clearly that if I close my eyes, I can see it vividly now. And it's Daley Thompson receiving his gold. You're nodding, and I'm sure many of the listeners and viewers will remember Daley Thompson. And if you don't know Daley Thompson, Google him or YouTube, because he is an incredible athlete, a Team GB legend. And of course, I'm 6, I don't know any of this. I'm just watching this man who's won the gold in the decathlon, so arguably the world's greatest athletes. You've got 10 events to do. He's won it in fine style. He's stood on the podium, and the Union flag is being raised. God Save the Queen is being played, and he's got the gold medal around his neck. And he's stood there, and I won't demo because of where we are, but he's got his arms behind his back and he's whistling. So I'm sat on the edge of the couch. My dad's next to me. Dad, why is that man whistling? My dad thinks for a moment and he just says, well, I think he might be trying to stop himself from crying. And I immediately put my hands on my head and go, oh no, is he in trouble with his mum and dad like me?
Oh, that's so cute.
And my dad says, no, he's not in trouble. But sometimes when people are so happy, Leon, they can be overcome with emotion. They can begin to cry. Of course, I'm 6, I'm profoundly confused. And then my dad, who's not been trained in performance psychology or inspirational speaking or anything like that, says a throwaway comment to me. The reason why Daley Thompson is so happy is because when you're a sports person, Leon, there is nothing greater than the Olympic Games. And my response was simple. I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. And I guess the interesting thing is there's lots of dreams and aspirations set, but I guess for me, the difference certainly was my behaviours changed completely after that. So I was hyperactive, drove my parents up the wall. That's why I was so into sport. We can talk more about that later, but the behaviours that changed, the first thing was I would say to my dad every few weeks, Dad, when are the Olympic Games back on again? And he'd have to explain 4 years, and that's a long time when you're 6. But then, for example, I would get from Santa the Guinness Book of World Records for Christmas. And I would, in my best handwriting, which wasn't particularly good, write down my fastest swimming time next to the world record holder, my best gymnastics score, any other sport that I was embarking at the time next to it. And that became the thing for me, right? It was like the Olympic Games are so special. And it was that moment and that inspiration or moment, that age really impressionable. And I was a pain in the backside. I had lots of things going on. It wasn't particularly easy to manage. My parents took me to the family doctor when I was very young to see if there's anything wrong with me. And the family doctor said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, you've got a problem child. And if you can't cope with him, maybe we can sedate him, or maybe they were offered sedatives. I'm not sure what the deal was. Either way, they didn't take that option and they decided to attempt to tire me out. And that's how my activity of sport came in. So coupled with that moment of the Olympic Games and being hyperactive and just loving being involved in physical movement, that was my medicine, physical movement. Led me to try every sport possible. I was born in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire. I tried every sport. Swimming was one of my first loves because I was taken to the pool to kind of splash around, which was just like exhilarating for me. Similar time, mother and baby gymnastics, which led to then kind of like tumble tots and, through the week. So then you've got like love of water, likes rolling around, somersaulting. You can see how when I was given the opportunity, do you want to try? Yes. diving. I went off, tried diving, and I could actually do quite a lot of the skills that were required, somersault, do a handstand, all of these things that lend itself, because divers aren't good swimmers. You just need to be able to swim to the side. That's as far as it goes, right? Divers and gymnasts, trampolinists, acrobats, that's the kind of area we're playing in. And I like the fact, and I think it lent itself to my hyperactivity. ADHD wasn't invented when I was diagnosed as a problem child, but I'm pretty sure that that would have been a very accurate diagnosis. And what I found is team sports didn't suit me because there was too much waiting around. If no one passed me the ball, I'd lost concentration and I was off playing havoc. Whereas when you're standing on the end of a diving board, you're grimacing as I'm about to describe how dangerous it is, right? And it doesn't even need to be high and it's dangerous, because if you hit the diving board, you're going to injure yourself. If you belly flop, and those of you who've not hit the water from any height won't really know. You think water's soft, it's not. Water is like running into a brick wall. From the 10-meter board, which for everyone, if you want to do a little bit of visualization, just imagine, close your eyes if you want, a double-decker bus, which is pretty high. Put another double-decker bus on top of that, and then a family-sized car on top of both of the buses, and that's the 10-meter board. So when you throw yourself off that, as I did, from hours and hours and hours a day, 6-7 days a week, 7 hours a day, hitting the water at over 35 miles an hour, you're risking. It didn't start when I was 8. You kind of build the progression, but you need it's handy to have hyper focus when you're in situations like that. And I think my attribution kind of attentional thing lent itself to that, because I wasn't waiting for the ball to come to me. I was there on the end of the board, and if I wasn't concentrating, then I'd really hurt myself. And that was really compelling for me. And not being able to do things that other people couldn't do, or that were really outside of my comfort zone, were deeply satisfying and intrinsically rewarding for me. And then I was competitive, and that all kind of lent itself to, how can I do in this one, and can I hold my nerve under pressure? Because diving is one of those sports where it's not your best throw like it is in javelin, or you get a no jump in the long jump. It's like every dive counts. So there's that element of pressure within the competition and the sport. So yeah, it's sadistic really, isn't it, when you think about it? It's not not what everyone would choose to do for a living.
Yes. Oh my God. So for context, for people who don't know you, what, because you are an Olympic medalist, so when did you win your Olympic medal, and for what?
Sure, yeah. So I guess my sporting adventure within that sport started when I was 8, and then by the time I was 11, I was the best in the country for my age group, and then junior Europeans at 14, men's team at 16. 18 first Olympic Games way back in 1996 when I was doing my A-levels at the same time. Sydney Olympic Games in 2000, narrowly missed out on a medal, and then Athens 2004. Pretty much 20 years to the day that I watched Daley Thompson on the TV. I stood on the podium, and Peter Waterfield and I won British diving's first Olympic medal in 44 years. And that was in the men's 10-meter synchronized event. So 2 people same time off that incredibly high diving board. And then I was 6th place in the individual event. So over my career, I won medals in all the major championships. And, that one, the Olympic medal is I guess, one of the many highlights. But from a results point of view, would be the most, held in the highest regard.
I mean, it is very impressive. I remember when I first met you, and I was in awe of you, because I think most people are in awe of athletes, Olympic athletes particularly, because we just can't wrap our heads around what it must take to, and because that sort of margin of, it's a bit like motor racing, right? It must be so, I can't even imagine how hideous it must be to just miss out. And how, so it's the winning, but it's also the losing by such a small margin. And we're going to talk about, you and I love talking about, doing the hard things, and we're going to talk about that a lot. But I think most people just think, what are you born with this special ability or a particular type of brain? What is it about you, do you think, that meant that you got got to where you got to?
Where to start with that? It's interesting, isn't it? So I hold many people in high regard for different things, and the behaviours and attributes needed to become the very best in the world in a field as a specialist are quite a unique collection, right? So there's this is the hard thing about being an athlete, and I think this is really interesting for everyone. When you're an athlete, it kind of, for me, it was organic. So I was like, oh, this is fun, I love to do this. And then you start taking it seriously, then it goes tits up, right? So you think,
Right.
oh my God, this is the most important thing. My identity is wrapped up in this. If I don't win this medal, then I'm a complete failure. Everyone's gonna, you've got all of this going on, which is completely unhealthy. So there's lots of dangers involved in that, how it lends itself to you're judged by your results and you become your results. And that's all something to unpick, which I have, and took great delight in unpicking that. But in order to show up every day and train for 7 hours, people can't handle that because it's too hard and too boring. Now, diving isn't boring. My swimming friends, that's boring. I love to swim, obviously, and I can, take that, and I still enjoy swimming now, but following a black line up and down is really boring. And those who can do that are incredible. But the time spent doing the same thing for no guarantees, in a sport like diving, in many sports, even if you do make it to Olympic medalist, which I'm very grateful and fortunate to have, there's, you still have to earn a living. I was able to be in an era where I was given a monthly grant, so I could pay my rent, I could put food on the table, and I was very fortunate to have the support of the National Lottery, which gave me access to physiotherapists, sports scientists, nutritionists, and I could travel and compete for my country and go after my dreams. But as soon as you underperform or you're injured, then obviously the resources go elsewhere. So there's no guarantees. The only guarantee is that there's no guarantees. I think that applies to us all in many ways. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to, that risk, if you like, of this might not work, and then why am I doing it? People go, well, I've got to get a job, I've got to go to university, I've got to do this, I've got this, I've got to, prioritize. But to be so focused on how far can I take this, like the intrinsic reward of competing, of seeing how good one can be. But then, of course, the world then needs to revolve around you. So you need to adopt behaviours of being very self-centred. That's not really selfish, but it can be viewed as selfish. Can you come to my wedding? No, because I'm competing. Can you come to my granddad's funeral? No. Can you do, so it was just this kind of filter of no, because I've got to do this. Is it going to make the proverbial boat go faster? In my case, is it going to impact me? So you're making all these decisions, and the world revolves around you because you've got people at the highest level as you move up through the ranks looking at you nutritionally, psychology, physiotherapy, biomechanical analysis. You've got coaches, you've got all these people input into you. And then one day it goes, you're gone. And then the world doesn't revolve around you. And all of those behaviours that you're used to relying on and displaying, it can start to turn you inside out. And that's why many athletes suffer with mental health issues. As I have during my career I suffered as well with a period of retrospectively diagnosed as depression, because you're tough and people view you as an Olympic athlete as like you're indestructible. How do you do that? How do you train all those hours? How do you perform under pressure? And you're still a human being underneath, and you still got wherever you go, there you are. And what you're sometimes sold as an athlete, and it's not explicit, but you can when you win the whatever it is, World Cup, Olympic medal, you'll be happy. And of course you do. And then there's this massive vacuum of is this it? Is this what I risked it all for? And I'm now still here, me, with the still insecurities, the imposter syndromes, all of the normal human stuff running around my system. And this medal means a lot, but actually I need to now do something else. And then that future focus of what's next. And you're chasing, and you see it a lot in the world of sports specifically, where people make comebacks, successful or otherwise, because they just don't know what to do. And that drive and determination, and it's kind of almost running away from something rather than towards. And that's the danger. So to answer a very long-winded answer to your question, I think it's a combination, right? So there's circumstance, there's trauma that influences it, there's the hyperactivity stuff for me. You see a lot of athletes who have the neurodiverse thing going on, whatever it might be, that can lend itself. So is it brain? Maybe a bit. Is it nurture? 100%. You know, my mum and dad needed to try and manage me, so they put me in structured situations where I could bounce around off the walls and not cause too much harm, basically, you know, and pursue things that were deeply gratifying to me. So it's interesting, right, isn't it? Because there isn't like a recipe. It's always a blend and a combination, but it's definitely driven by an internal kind of thing. And that can be to get away from something because you're not happy, because you're chasing something, or it can be different. And, you know, that's an interesting thing to delve into, because every person, obviously, we're all as unique as our thumbprint, aren't we?
And was there a point when you were a teenager, I guess, when you said, you know, you were then the best in the country, and was there a moment that you remember where your brain flicked into, oh, actually, this is really serious now? And did it feel really pressured, or was there a moment? Or was it gradual?
I think it's gradual. It's quite insidious, really, because you don't really notice it happening. And then suddenly you realise, through normally a massive mess up, that you've been getting it all wrong, you know. And I think those are the learnings that you need to, that not you need to, but that you get to respond to. So I remember my second Olympic Games, you know, going into Sydney Olympic Games, incredible. Peter and I are, you know, ranked, if you're not really ranked in diving, but we're there or thereabouts. So we're a medal hope, you know, going into those Olympic Games. And because it was my second Olympic Games, I was like, right, well, I've got this. I'm not going to even enjoy this because I'm so focused and so serious. You know, I'm just going to not interact with the other athletes because they're doing their thing, I'm doing mine. I'm just going to be there to focus because all I'm going to do is win a medal, right? So that was the focus, that was the narrative, that was the thing. And it was all based on this outcome that invariably you can't control. So you know where the story's going. And it became all about winning this medal, and everything was going to be great then. We were going to be the first medalist in 40 years, blah, blah, blah. And then we came fourth by the narrowest of margins. Back to your intro. How do you deal with that? Well, not very well when that's all you're focused on and that's what your self-worth is on. And then a year later, I had to undergo reconstructive shoulder surgery because I'd managed to ignore my pain in my shoulder successfully because I was being tough. Pain is weakness leaving the body and other nonsense that I was subscribing to. Quite maturistic at that time in sport, you know, looking at, you know, how tough you can be. Don't show any weakness, all that kind of stuff. And well, there you go. Now you're in a right mess. Reconstructive shoulder surgery, given a 30% chance of making it back, and make it back. 6 months of rehabilitation, back into the water. Things aren't working. Second surgery. If you don't have the second surgery, you'll never dive again. But if you do have it, not quite sure. You've got a few months to get back. If you don't get back, your funding's going to be taken. Boom, straight down the spiral into depression. Not speaking to my friends, not speaking to my family. I'm dealing with this. I'm tough. I've got this. Lying to my sports psychologist that I was fine. Let's focus on performance. 6.1% body fat, underweight, like not obsessing over weight, you know, disordered eating, in a right mess, basically. And for me, there was, you know, a series of things that kind of unfolded and happened, and kind of I, you know, had that realization that, you know, I've got it all wrong. I mean, there was a moment where I'd made it back onto the team, and it was my mentor, Steve Foley, who was also Australian, but he was part of the National Performance Director. But I aspired to him because he competed at the Olympic Games, you know, and he was just an incredible person. I remember being at my lowest ebb, and I'm stood on the poolside in Seville. I just competed poorly at the World Cup. I'd scraped back onto the team. I'd recovered from these 2 surgeries. The shoulder's okay. That, you know, just been like, well, the thing was, I at that moment in time, I'd decided that was it. I'm done. I can't do it. I've done everything and nothing's worked. So the tears are flowing. You know, first time standing there crying on poolside since I was like 11 or something. You know, this moment, head shaking. You know, I'm done. And I remember the point is he gently placed his hand on my shoulder. He didn't give me advice, he didn't console me, he just went, "Hey, Leon, remind me why you do this sport." Just give me a shake. And through the tears, because I enjoy it. And of course you kind of say that, and then, you know, that moment, I was like, the reason I chose this sport over all the others is because I enjoyed it. The reason I've quote unquote sacrificed all of the things is because I enjoy doing the thing, and I'd lost the focus so much on the outcomes, the results, the weight loss, the this, the that, the details, that I needed to like look up from obsessing over the day to day and all these things and go, well, what's it all about? Well, enjoyment. Well, and then his second question was, well, why haven't I seen you smile for the past 8 months? So I made one change when I went back to training, and bearing in mind this is over 20 years ago now, I put a massive fake smile on my face for the first time, and it hurt, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know at the time that I do now. Physiology, emotion is a two-way street. If you hold a smile for long enough, after a while, the person opposite you starts smiling, and then that fake smile turns into a real smile, neurochemicals boom in your brain. Guess what happens? You totally reverse that depressive into like, oh, actually, I do enjoy this. And then very quickly, after a few days back at training, day off, back to training, for 3 weeks until the next major, happened to be the Commonwealth Games, home Commonwealth Games in Manchester. And I narrowly missed out on a medal in that event, nearly missing the gold to Peter, who won the individual gold. And that negative spiral I was stuck in went the other way. And that was the moment that it changed. And then from that point, that learning was, I don't care about the outcomes. Obviously, I'm judged by them, and obviously they're important, but I don't care about them because I can't control them. What can I control? Performance. But what leads you to performance? Process. So what am I going to do every day? Well, I'm going to put a smile on my face, even when it's hard. In fact, especially when it's hard. Why? Because that's going to put me in the right state in order to do the required training. When things go, wrong or incorrect or whatever, I'm not going to beat myself up, because what's the point? What's the point in internally punishing myself for something that's already happened? I just go, okay, well, fine. Well, what did I learn? What am I going to do differently next time? And that process approach, and that performance approach, when I got to the Olympic Games in Athens, all we were doing was just having a laugh. We were just like, Peter and I were just great teammates, the rest of the team. Even though if Peter and I didn't win a medal on day one of those Olympic Games, the whole sports funding would have been cut completely. Every single person, athlete, coach, any official within British diving was implicitly looking at us going, good luck,
Wow.
And they weren't saying, don't mess up because the sport's going to be completely screwed, but that's how it was. And we took all of that on because it was like, well, I can't control any of that. Process. And it was just, and I wouldn't have been able to operate in that way if I hadn't been through the hell that I went through in order to learn what's most important here. And that helped me then transition from, when I retired in 2008, just before my 4th Olympic Games, because my body was completely broken by way of not being able to perform the dives. 4 Olympic Games, just narrowly missed out. And then I'm on the other side now as much easier talking about it, but I'm behind a microphone today, so this is more familiar for me these days as I get to do the commentary for the BBC covering the major championships, including the Olympic Games, which I'm excited about doing this year.
I love your story. I was going to ask you, what was I going to ask you? Yes, when you were saying then about, I know the smile thing because you've taught me that. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that. But yeah, I still deploy that Leon tool of the forced smile.
Yeah.
Sometimes do when I'm trying not to scream at my kids, like I'm doing a big fake smile right now. Like, I really love you. Did you have any tools then, like meditation, for example, or not for mindset?
Not meditation as such. So the exploration with the sports psychology for me around that time was massively into visualization. So I wasn't visualizing myself standing on the podium. I was visualizing myself performing each of the dives to the best of my ability, whether that was in the individual event or whether it was in the synchronized event. And what you're doing with visual imagery rather than just visualization is sights, sounds, smells, colors, tastes, as much as you can to take yourself in the moment. And as you and I are both big fans of the Huberman Lab podcast, Andrew Huberman does a big long form, if you're up for it, listeners and viewers, into visualization and how it works, right? So this isn't like, oh yeah, visualize myself and I'm going to be fine. This is actually scientifically proven to make a huge difference. And all high performers do visualization. It makes a big difference. So for me, working on that as a skill, because in diving, the intensity is incredible. So when I'm performing a dive in training, there's like 20 people in the arena. When it's at a national competition, there's a few hundred, and there's 15,000 in the Olympic Games when it counts, right?
Jeez.
And I'm wearing a pair of budgie smugglers,
Wow.
right? So I don't mind the budgie smugglers,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
imagine the
Oh
intensity.
my God.
So how do you do the pressure training? Well, you can't. I couldn't get 100 people to watch me at training, let alone 15,000 to put that environment. But you can go there with your mind's eye. Unconscious mind can't really tell the difference between something that is imagined vividly and there's something in reality. So I'd performed the dives to the best of my ability in Athens before I got there, so thousands of times. So what it did, it gave me the ability, or it gave me the opportunity, or the reality of standing at the back of the diving board and not completely bricking it. Because if you get amygdala hijack, if you get sympathetic dominance, which basically means fight, flight, freeze, completely normal in a high pressure situation, but that's useless if you want to perform at the best of your ability. You want to be parasympathetic dominance, rest, digest, rejuvenate, or cool, calm and collected, right? So on the diving board, relaxed concentration, smiling, at ease, no resistance, let the dive happen. Not, which is like, the freeze response, which is completely normal, the hijack and all of that stuff. Yeah.
So when you are standing on that board, and I've stood on one of those boards and jumped off it, not gone head first. And I hate that feeling of free falling. I really don't enjoy it. You are genuinely calm. It's not for the camera. It's because my knees would be knocking together and I'd be, sweating and all those things you said.
Yeah.
But you are genuinely 100% totally calm, or is there an element of heart racing, knees knocking?
Yeah, there's an element of readiness. So the arousal curve, so it's like, it's an inverted U. So am I pumped enough? And then am I too adrenalized or hyped up? So the knees knocking is over on this side. So it's an upside down U. So you want to be like, so at a low level competition, I'd probably need to be a bit like, come on, not quite.
So you need more pumped.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to not mean anything. I'm not going to hit that sweet spot. At the Olympic Games, you're ramped right over here. So all of your breathing, so cue control, relaxation, breathing techniques, I was exploring those back then. I've obviously done a lot more work on those now. But at the time, there was, this combination of visualization, breathing, attention direction. Am I paying attention to something I can control? Or am I being distracted by the 15,000 people in the crowd, the judges, the Chinese, the Russians, all of the people that I can't do anything about? If my attention is there, then I'm going to be swinging myself towards the knee knocking, sympathetic, or am I just concentrating on my breathing? Am I smiling? Am I the interactions, the process? What am I doing next? Following this kind of like this video script in my head of, then I do this, then I do that, and I'm smiling, I'm relaxed, I'm joyful, and you've been there because it's a controlled environment. I'm not waiting to be past the hockey ball. The 10-meter board is there. Pete's next to me. 1, 2, 3, go. We know all of this. It's fine tuned. It's a closed skill, so it's a case of like remaining calm. So that isn't for the camera. That's for me. And the best dives I've ever done, I can't remember because I wasn't there. I'm so deep in the activity. I've got amnesia, so I'm in pure flow,
right?
Flow state. We can, the science out there shows what is that, where you're so. I mean, for example, if you're presenting, as I love to do, one of the things I'm very passionate about is public speaking. So I mean, the skill set that I've worked out. We've all had the experience of it not going very well, public speaking. If you've done it back at school or whatever, this is where like a 4-minute presentation feels like 40 minutes. And you remember every word you said and every that you did, right? Whereas flow is, a 40-minute presentation feels like 4 and you don't remember a thing. So this notion of flow state is getting out of your own way. It's the conscious mind just disappears and you're purely in the moment. The pain is you can't track it. So you think, I really want to remember how I did that world's most amazing dive, and you can't remember it. So it's just those moments of altered state joy that are incredible. And you can achieve that reading a book, music. There's not like the higher echelons of elite sport that get to play in that space, although it's slightly different in that setting. But you can lose yourself in a moment where time dilates. You don't know how long you've been doing something. Which
is where in meditation, that's the kind of, ultimate goal, but that's that feat of nothingness, which I've never quite achieved yet, but I'm still new on my meditation journey.
Yeah, I think that it's a bit like being asleep. You don't know that you're asleep until you wake up. Same as meditation. You don't know that you're in a deep meditative place or state until you come out of it and go, oh, I'm doing it. No, you're not, because you're thinking you're doing it, right? So it's the same as like, what just happened? And I think those moments of richness are, of accessible in various endeavours and activities, and, flowing sports being, a great example of that.
And one thing you said to me when we chatted last week, which I really like, and is a lovely metaphor for life, is people often ask you, you said, how on earth do you jump off a 10-metre board head first? And you said...
What did I say?
You said, well, you start by jumping off the side of the pool.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, look, when you watch anything complex, whatever it is, in any setting, you think, well, how the hell does someone do that? How do you deliver that presentation? How do you sit so calmly during a podcast? How do you start a business? How do you do this? How do you scale that? And you break it down into its component parts. And so in diving, it's very simple. You start on the side and you build your confidence there. So the knee knocking gets less, you become more familiar. Then you go to the 1 metre. And then you start to add in layers of complexity. And then you start to bring in, if you need to, and which is a wise thing, the visualization. Start to cross-reference things. We used to work in the dryland area where you've got trampolines and video cameras on feedback where you can see the movements, so you're getting visual input that you're watching yourself back and go, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. And then your coach is going, oh, Leon, you're moving your head. Whereas before he said, Leon, you're moving your head. And I go, no, I'm not, because I couldn't feel it. So kinesthetically, I was unaware that I was moving my head. And then I see on the video, I go, oh, yeah, fair enough. Okay, you got me. But then when you've got like the visual, auditory kind of coaching and the kinesthetic awareness, and you're starting to layer these things in, and you're starting to build the familiarity. So you go from, consciously competent, so you have to really think about what you're doing, to unconsciously competent, where the dive's just kind of like the movement patterns go in. And then above that would be a whole new different level, which would be the flow state, where you're just so familiar with it, you're out of your own way completely. This notion of beginner's mind, nothingness, meditative state, and you can't force yourself into it. It's a bit like going, right, force yourself to go to sleep. You can't do it. You have to create the circumstances where you're likely to fall asleep, right? Same with flow, create the circumstances where you're likely to drop into flow. So before my dive, and you see this with at the moment, Six Nations is on at the moment, isn't it, in rugby? So anyone who's kicking for goal in rugby union will do a particular process, right? And I had a pre-dive routine, so stand at the back of the diving board, and when my name is called, I would throw down the towel that we'd use, small towel called a chamois for those diving enthusiasts out there, only when my name is called. And then the referee would announce the name and blow the whistle. And as soon as I hear the whistle, I would inhale through the nose and slow exhale through the mouth. And then say to myself silently, smile and believe. And then you would totally see, if you watch it on the videos, my face would totally go to that place of zen, calm, whatever you want to describe it. And then I walk to the end and I'm on complete autopilot then. I'm not thinking, oh, this needs to be good. I wonder if I can score 8s on this. And then when, there's no thinking, it's just like following all the way through. So that pre-dive routine, so I'm trying to create the conditions where I'm most likely to drop into flow, getting out of my own way. It doesn't always work, of course it doesn't, but there's that opportunity to access it more frequently if you set those circumstances.
I remember the first time I heard about sportsman visualizing was when Johnny Wilkinson was, I can't remember the year, it was around 2005, I want to say.
Yeah, 2003, wasn't it? The World Cup when they won. Yeah, 2000,
yes.
Yeah.
And he just very rarely missed. And you would see him just, and that's when the first time I ever heard about visualization. Someone obviously on the commentary said it. And yeah, I think that Huberman episode is a really good, if people want to learn how to do it. People talk a lot about manifesting. Do you think they're similar things, or do you think they're different things, manifesting and visualizing?
Yeah, I don't know enough about manifesting to speak confidently, but I guess the process is what you're doing. You're creating a a future history, aren't you? So you're kind of what you're doing is firing the neural pathways by actually not experience it. So I feel that there is a lot to be said, that we're very powerful as a human being. We don't understand how much power we have, and we get little glimpses of it. And I think the visualization is a good example of how powerful we can be and how we can guide our ability to, in my case, perform and think correctly or well under massive amounts of pressure, where if I didn't do that preparation, I would have just fallen to pieces under the circumstances. So it shows you how powerful you can be. And there's a lot of stuff around healing. I know we're enjoying a bit similar read at the moment. I think there's a huge amount of examples and powerful nature of how we can influence ourselves, by our thoughts, feelings and emotions, and how we can guide those. I love playing with, my autonomic nervous system, with the ice cold dips in the sea and all of the things like that. It's just an exploration of like what is, within my sphere of influence. And I think we can influence a lot more through our thoughts and feelings. So it's an area that I love to personally experiment in, and I'm really keen to continue to grow and learn.
Yeah. I know we're both. Are you reading the same book?
Yeah.
So I've talked about this before on this podcast. It's quite a meaty,
it's heavy, isn't it? Yeah.
Called, I never get the name right, Becoming Supernatural.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
And what I find fascinating is that you can, and I know this from my own personal experience. So a couple of things that really stood out to me was one that you just said, which is you can influence even your physical body through thought, and you can heal yourself, and you can do incredible things. You can also do the opposite.
Which with many of us fall into the patterns of
doing. And we don't even know we're doing it. And I also listened to an interesting podcast this morning about therapy and how therapy can be actually really counterproductive, with sort of just constantly dwelling on things. And he talks about this. If your brain has these sort of rehearsed, embedded, if that's a way to say it, pathways where it just goes immediately back. So, for example, you think, right, I'm not going to drink any more alcohol. It makes me feel terrible. But you haven't changed the neural pathways so that when that temptation comes along, or it's 5 o'clock that evening, that you're able to go, no, I'm not going to have that. That sort of automatic process just kicks straight in, and you're pretty powerless because you're not in control. So you have to change that piece first. I'm probably really hamming up this explanation. But when you've had maybe mental health problems or past traumas, and and you go back to them quite a lot, and in talking therapy, you talk about them a lot. And actually, that's not very helpful. You have to process things. But I've really noticed in the last few weeks since reading that book and practicing meditation, that my brain very quickly can go straight into memories, and it starts replaying them like a well-rehearsed play or movie. And I was at an event last night, and there was a lady there who really reminded me of my stepmother. And my brain went straight in. So it's just like, and here's another memory of something awful she did, and here's another one, and here's another one. And before I'd read this book, so I've gone on a massive tangent, but it will make sense, I would have just gone, well, that's just my memories, and there's not much I can do. And, if I'd even thought about it, and I was like, there it goes. And you can deprogram that and program new pathways, if that's the right word, and patterns. And I love it so much. It's so interesting. And I think especially physical health, that we think, well, there's nothing we can do about that. There's certain lifestyle things, but if there's something quite serious even, you think, well, that's that then. It's actually not the case. We're so powerful, like you say. And I find that really exciting. I'm only at the beginning of that kind of journey.
Yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of our time not here, don't we? So we're in the past, ruminating over what we did, good or bad, often bad. Or in the future, worrying about stuff that hasn't happened yet, which may or may not have any truth to it. And when you begin to notice that. That's the step one, right? Just begin to notice, like you just beautifully shared there about, oh, look, there's my mind, because you're not your thoughts.
No.
You're the awareness of your thoughts. Have a look at them. Are they serving you? What are they there for? You can choose how you respond to them. And that isn't always easy. I mean, I'm a father of a 3.5-year-old, and it's pretty tricky a lot of the time and massively exciting. I'd love to say that I can just go, oh, look, you're not your thoughts. You're just the awareness of them when there's like a mega meltdown happening, me or my son Ziggy, whichever is having the meltdown. But it's a practice, right? So it's beginning to notice and observe, and then choosing to adjust if you can. And there's various ways one can go about that. And that's kind of been really rewarding for me in this. I completed my athletic career, and I was in chronic pain in my lower back. The medical team told me if I was a horse, they'd have to put me down. And it was my lower back, and it wasn't looking good. I was only 30, and I was going to be in pain in my lower back for the rest of my life. And I made some clear decisions around then, some guidance around practicing yoga. Didn't really know what yoga was, but threw myself into it because that was the opportunity to heal my broken back, or not my broken back, my broken body, particularly my chronic pain in my lower back. And that physical movement of yoga, of course, is a massive part, but there's lots of other elements to it as well. There's the philosophical approach, there's the pranayama, which is the breathing, there's this meditative approach, and there's this being still, and ultimately finding your way to being a much calmer place. There's lots of the philosophical beginnings and interpretations of yoga are far and wide. And for me, it was incredible to not be in a rush all the time, to be able to step back and observe and be okay with the fact that my mind goes a million miles an hour. And meditation isn't about stopping that. It's just about observing it. It's like standing by a busy road going, wow, look at all that traffic. How interesting. And then coming back to a breath or whatever it might be. And for me, it's just the noticing, observing. And when my mind wanders, if I'm in a meditative practice, I just go, there's my mind. It's off, thoughts, feelings, past, present. Wow. Come back. It's just like putting your arm around a friend and going, hey, attention. Come back to, for me, it's often anchored to the breath. I find that present moment, sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose or in the belly or wherever it might be. And I know how to change my state using my breath, diaphragmatic nasal breathing. There's lots of breathing techniques one can do to calm the system. And so for me, I have a system that is, if left unchecked, operates frantically, and if really unchecked, darts about all over the place, my attention. So in order for me to operate in the world of this relaxed concentration, it's like, okay, calming my nervous system, moving my body vigorously or otherwise, or calmly, and at different points, in order to kind of fine tune and find that space. And so the evolution, if you like, from being a performer and so on, I still like to perform now, but I have this observer role and this kind of understanding of, that I am not my thoughts. I'm in the awareness, and it's just a really nice place to come back to, because then you can manage whatever life is throwing at you a little bit more resourcefully. There's lots of challenging things happening to people all the time, and you get drawn into it, and then we move into patterns of overthinking, rumination, worrying about future, and we spend all our time there, and we never spend any time going, actually, am I okay now? And I feel my one foot, in my case, on the floor, my hands here. And when you practice that, that's all it takes to settle down. And the more you do that, the more familiar your nervous system becomes with calming itself down, and the more resilient you become to dealing with all of the uncertainties that, well, life is just one big change, isn't it? So good luck trying to control all of that. It's fruitless, really. Futile, sorry.
So you mentioned your son earlier.
Yes.
And has any of your training as an athlete served you well in parenthood? Have you been able to translate any of it into parenting? Because it's not an easy...
No, it's the hardest thing I've ever I don't want to say had to do, but yeah, I've
Yeah.
been given the opportunity to step
Yeah.
into, because there's no getting out of it, is there? I mean, it's not like Amazon, oh, I don't
No.
want that product anymore.
Yeah.
Where's the returns policy? Oh, I don't like this job, I'm going to move. I don't like living here, I'm going to, yeah. It's like a very permanent thing. So I think not so much an athlete, but now as a coach and a mentor, which is the space I'm in now, and you know how we've spent time together, and this, you know, ability to guide, support, challenge, influence, all of that's coming into to play as my role as a father in the hardest context there is, where someone for some reason seems to be very strong-willed and defiant. I don't know where he gets that from. And it's really tricky. So I think my the understanding of guiding people, supporting, you know, that I've moved into now. When you're an athlete, everything revolves around you, and the way that I transitioned was to make it about other people. So I've been mentoring athletes in different sports, able-bodied, disabled, for years. It's deeply gratifying. Truly, I now work as a executive coach, presentation coach, speaker, presenter, yoga teacher. All of this stuff is about other people. You know, it's the inspiring, influencing, guiding, supporting, challenging others in order so they can go along their journey. And that for me is my contribution, my purpose, all of that stuff. You know, before it was all about my pursuit of quote unquote excellence, and now it's, you know, the interaction and contribution towards others. So this journey into parenthood has kind of been a reflection of that, and I am choosing to lower my expectations of what I think is right and wrong and on me, and that's something that I wouldn't have done as an athlete, because it would have had to have been, you know, at this standard, and I would have held myself and punished myself if I wasn't careful. So it's that freedom and desire to learn and explore and grow. One thing that has influenced me a lot is this acknowledgement of, you know, emotions and holding the space. And, you know, I was, you know, parented. My parents did the best job they could with me, but it was very like, stop, no. I remember saying to my dad once when I was very young, or my dad recalled the story, he said, I don't like the name Leon. And my dad said, why? And I said, because Leon's always in trouble. Because I was difficult, right? And so this whole thing. So I'm very much aware of that in parenting. So there's lots of things I've learned through, you know, this, you know, the growth mindset and various other things that I'm aware of. But I think for me, the biggest joy is watching Ziggy explore the world, and they're just incredible at noticing. They just notice so much, like something falling off the door in the background, you know, and still managing to stay with the story that I'm telling. So Ziggy notices everything. And for me, it's, you know, I watch him do these activities, and no amount of instructional coaching is going to help. So left foot forward when you do this, lean forward, move your center of gravity. Like, good luck. He's on his scooter, and he's going off a big ramp in the skate park because he wants to. So my opportunity is to hold my state. So I show no signs of anxiety or nervousness. It's already making you nervous, me telling the story. So you wouldn't be any good in this situation, Mel, because I know. So I stand there totally calm, you know, concentrating on my breathing, because that's what he notices, because they notice everything. Daddy's calm, I'm safe.
And they pick
boom,
up your energy.
down the ramp, boff, off he goes, totally fine. Every time. And then when he falls, I just pick him up and go, you okay? Where's it hurt? Okay. What do we do in our house? We keep trying. Okay. Do you want to do it again? Yeah. Off we go. And there's that kind of mindset of, yeah, it's your choice. What do you want to do? We keep trying. Well, that's how we do. You can't do your zip. Okay. What do we do in our house? We keep trying. Okay. Well, let's see if we can do this. And there's that kind of like using the verbs, isn't it? So you did great. I'm really pleased with your effort. You focused really, really good listening there. You know, not commenting so much on the achievements,
yes,
just on his approach to
or
them.
attributes. What a clever boy.
Yeah. So those can be damaging.
Yes.
Inadvertently. They're, you know, they're for positive praise, but actually, you know, the science shows that actually can cause you know, the opposite to what you're trying to create. So I'm very much mindful of that. And the other thing, Ziggy, you know, he loves to swim. And I'd like to say that I was able to take him as soon as he was allowed in the pool, but because of the pandemic and all that nonsense, everything was closed for ages, and I wasn't able to take him swimming. And I was thinking, oh, in fact, he had to have a trial to see if he could get into the baby class because he was a bit old. But what I've done with Ziggy, taking him swimming, is I am super relaxed in the water. I've never put him in any armbands or anything. I've just held him so he knows where he is in the water. And when he goes under, I just pick him up. And, there's, wonderful to get, be in an environment where I was coached in this water safety. So it wasn't just me on my own. It's like getting instruction, let them go, pick them up, all this kind of stuff. And I'm totally, totally calm. So if he was to to get into difficulty, I just pick him up. Okay, good. There isn't like wrenched out of the water or anything like that.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, so there's this element. So that's what I'm really mindful of, is there's just holding because I am an adult, apparently, and I can emotionally regulate. So when he is learning to do that, I need to be an example of that. And that's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's really hard. And that's how I, continually kind of assess how I'm doing. Like, how am I doing here? Am I giving you a wide variety of things to experience? Am I being present? Is my phone away? There's a lot of that going on. But am I teaching through my own emotional regulation? And am I building repair or bridges when I lose it? I'm sorry, Daddy shouted. I got really frustrated then. I've now calmed down. I'm ready to have a cuddle if you are, and just taking responsibility and kind of showing that way, rather than I'm the adult, I'm right, because I say, get your shoes on and get out the door. Which, we all need to say at times.
Yeah, we've all done that one. And the dreaded, why? Because I said so.
Because I said so, yeah.
Yeah. You said something to me, and I don't know if it was you or you'd read it, but it really stuck in my head. And I'm really conscious of it with my children, is children need adversity, not trauma.
Yeah.
And children these days are not having enough adversity, anywhere near enough adversity. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we're living in a culture and environment where it's instant gratification, isn't it? Straight to the dopamine. You don't need to work for anything.
With no effort.
With no effort. Yeah, it's incredibly dangerous. So yeah, it's worth giving you my take on trauma, and we've got to be careful, because it's a bit, so stress. Two types of stress: eustress, which is the acute stress that one recovers from, and distress, which is the stress you can't get away from. The distress causes, massive, you're staying in sympathetic nervous system, and it's poisoning the body with neurochemicals, and it's disastrous. Acute stress does the same, but for a short period. And once you recover from it, then you get the bounce. So it could be lifting weights, right? It's an acute stress, or getting in the cold plunge and getting out and getting warmer. But one person's eustress is another person's distress. So let's say someone lost their job. One person's response could be a very positive one. And they go, great, I'm going to throw myself into my side hustle. I'm going to start a new business. I'm going to do this, boom. And they thrive. Someone else loses their job and they fall into a state of distress, and they stay there, and then there's all sorts of problems. And so I think it's the same with adversity and trauma, right? So it's like, I don't know where the line is, and I think there's a difference. So there's like adversity of, not being able to do your zip up, and, struggling with your shoelaces, and not being picked for the team in the playground, and, and actually having to work really hard for something and it not working out. A lovely quote, which I kind of remember, but it was like, a fit body, you don't just like accidentally get one of those or buy one, do you? You have to work for that. So an element of adversity is an element of, I'm choosing not to embark in this activity, drinking, whatever it might be. So there's an element of restriction in a good way. Discipline equals freedom. It's like not being so regimented, but just being disciplined. Okay, this is what's important to me, and that gives you the freedom to be and be present. So for me, the adversity is massively important, because you learn to focus, to concentrate, to apply oneself, to focus, and your biology behaves in a particular way. So that element of boredom and frustration are actually really healthy for us, and there isn't as many opportunities for them now, because we're surrounded by stuff that we can just divert our attention to effortlessly. And I would assert that the reward intrinsically, when one is committed to and done the hard things, is far greater than I've got my rewards, that kind of dopamine trough and all of the things that we look at when you're just flooding yourself with it. And And it doesn't really matter in some ways what it is. It's the process one goes through. So dealing with challenges, setbacks, how you define those, criticism, all of these things, dealing with that actually is good for us because it's a stress that pushes us back. We then respond and recover and we adapt. If we just live, the danger is, like, as a parent, I want to keep Ziggy really, really safe. I want to wrap him with cotton wool. I never want him to hurt himself. I never want him to be emotionally hurt. But that's ludicrous, isn't it? So, for example, he was determined, and this is not so recently, determined to touch the toaster. 100% determined. And I said, Ziggy, I'm the adult. This is a lot of logic. That's burn. You're going to burn your fingers. And he was determined. So I said, okay, fine, touch it. So he touched it. He didn't damage his fingers, but he burnt his fingers enough now. So he's got the feedback. So the university is, okay, so I'm not going to do that again. I mean, that's just a gentle example of, like, that's...
He learnt.
Yeah,
through the adversity.
Of the thing. And you've got to learn how these things happen. Now I'm going to do my utmost to protect him from anything major happening, and all of that stuff. So it's not like, oh, let's just see what happens. But the things that push you back make you stronger. And you can choose to do things that push you back. And that's the epitome of a growth mindset. It's like, oh, great, that was really, really difficult. I'm going to try that again. And it's not about doing it and being great. And, my identity is like, I'm successful, I'm clever, I'm a grade A student, I'm whatever. It's like, I try bloody hard. And when there's a challenge and I go, what can I do differently next time? How could I approach this challenge, whether it's mathematics, whether it's art, whatever it is, there's that element of mindset and approach, structure of how you approach things that we learn through adversity. Because if everything's easy, everything's gifted to us, it won't be one day and then you won't have any coping strategies. But if you know that life is hard, which it is, then you embrace that. And you're not expecting it to be effortless and easy. And those around you shouldn't create it for that, because then you're setting yourself up for a fall.
And also there's little satisfaction from doing easy things.
I agree.
And I don't think kids are being shown that enough. Which leads me nicely, just check how we are, onto those 3 words I've been trying to remember.
Oh, yes.
So we're laughing because I wrote this thing down and this is why I didn't do science. And I have a language degree because I can't remember these terms, but I've remembered it. So there's a bit of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. I think it's a fairly recent-ish discovery / study that's come out. I think it's Dr. Lisa Feldman
Barrett
on Huberman. Obviously, we listen to a lot of Huberman, as you can tell. And Huberman was interviewing David Goggins. If you don't know who he is, obviously you and I know who he is. Yep. Look him up.
Look him up, yeah.
I think his name has been turned into a verb, and we turned it into a verb at home. I said, yeah, I Goggins that one. And I Goggins my scuba diving.
You did.
And that I talked about that in the first episode of the podcast. So what David Goggins is well known for, like off the charts, is he forces himself to do stuff he hates. So he hates running, but he forces himself to run ridiculous, like 10 miles a day. He hates swimming, so he swims with his arms tied behind his back, like just crazy, because he doesn't really know why. And then Huberman explains it, which is this anterior mid-cingulate cortex. But there is a bit of your brain that gets bigger and stronger, and it's very big in athletes and people who overcome very hard things, and it gets bigger and stronger, and that's the seat of the will to live and willpower. And you can make it bigger but it has to be things you don't like doing, which is really interesting, because if you do cold plunge and then eventually you really like it, like a girl on my team loves a cold shower to the point where she can't have a hot shower. So that no longer will be doing the
It's lost
job.
its dose, hasn't it? It's all
Yeah.
in dose. Yeah,
So I think that's fascinating, because I don't hate it, but I don't love my PT sessions. My poor PT, every time I do a podcast, I say I really like him, and I do feel good afterwards because I've done it.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's physiological, which you would explain much better, things I get from doing a deadlift, and I get that stress moment, and but it's because I don't want to do it. And the hour leading up to, I'm thinking, oh God, I really don't want to do this.
You're trying to wiggle out of it.
And I try and wiggle out of it, and I think, I don't feel great.
Oh yeah. Oh, is that the time? Yeah, I've got
I wonder, I don't know, if I've got a bit of a funny tummy. And then my Goggins brain kicks in and goes, get down there. Come on, you got to do the hard thing. It's good for you. And that's been really helpful for me, because I think I asked you, so you coached me through not the Brighton marathon, the Brighton half marathon, which for me was enough, because I hate running,
I know.
and I still hate running. And I remember seeing you waving at me as you were about to finish, going the other way, and I still had about half to go, and thinking, that bastard, he's nearly finished. And so you coached me through that, and you taught me the smile thing then. So I remember doing my runs up in the downs like that. Got to like this. For those who aren't watching this, I'm doing a horrible fake smile. So I love that whole doing the hard things, and I try and teach my children to do so. Things like my youngest daughter, she's at a school that's very windswept and rainy, and they, rightly so, make them still play hockey and netball in skorts in the driving rain.
Great.
Which I think is very good for them. Can you get me off games? No. Oh, you're so mean, and you get me off games. Email this, no, I'm not getting you off games. Don't be so lame. And then she literally won't talk to me all the way to school. But I said, you need to learn to do these things. It's really good for you. How's it good for me? I'm going to catch a cold. We can't catch a cold from getting cold, but anyway, that's another thing. So yeah, teaching our kids to do the hard things, but also ourselves. And I remember asking you when you were coaching me, like, how do you train yourself to do the things you don't want to do? And now I'm asking you again.
I know. Yeah. So motivation and willpower is overrated, because it won't be there when you need it. When you're tired and you're stressed, good luck. So you need something else instead. So then it comes to, because motivation and willpower are like a feeling-based emotion, right? And that's up and down. Whereas on the other side, or the opposite side of that, is commitment. So there's no way I would have wanted to train 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. So that's really awful. It's tireless, even though I put my smile on and I did enjoy elements. I'd rather have got out of it and relaxed, or gone and done something else. But the commitment was there to my teammates, to my coach. The only reason that I went through the paces, my coach is there. So the environment was set up, and the behaviour that was expected, or the desired behaviour, just took place automatically. Rock up, it's a high performance setting. You're a high performance athlete, you get on with it. And that's why commitment is so important when you're looking to create new habits and behaviours. And you can play with this as you need to. It could be that you're the type of person that letting someone down is something that you won't do, because your values, your morals, whatever it is. So you commit to that person that you're going to go and do X, and no matter what your internal, I'm a bit this, I'm a bit that, you won't let that person down, because you've committed to them. And you've got to allow yourself to think, well, why am I doing this? The only reason that you fall short of goals, you don't have a big enough reason why. So if you want to learn to present, public speak, it's hard. It's, I take, deliver 2-day public presentation masteries, the training in public speaking. We do that in-house corporately. We do open workshops. And every time we start off with like, a big enough reason why. I just want to be better at my job. Well, that's not a really big enough reason why. What would more confidence give you? What would you could inspire your children, or children of others, to have more confidence. Well, this is a way to do that. So would you step into that place where it's going to be difficult now, outside of your comfort zone? So a big enough reason why is important, but also the environment, socially, and your actual environment. So if you want to meditate, then you want to be able to go to a place where there's no devices and all of that kind of stuff. And it might be sat at the edge of your bed every morning, but you might need a reminder, so a post-it note on the alarm clock, not your phone, in order to do it. So you're designing the environment where the desired behaviour takes place, and you're not relying on, do I feel like, because you won't when you need to do it the most, because if you do something every day or frequently, then it becomes a habit, and then it moves into this is what I do. We all brush our teeth frequently because we know the benefits. Big enough reason why I don't want my teeth to fall out. I have a aesthetic thing going on, also a gum health and all of that wonderful stuff. Big enough reason why, and it's been repetition every day, and it's now just something that I do, and you just kind of like go off and not really thinking and do the brush teeth. So how do we form the habits that are going to serve us? That's exactly the same approach. We need to start small, and prove it to yourself with small wins. I'm the type of person that is committed to doing the hard things, and I'm going to inspire my children to do the same. Now you're more likely to do the hard things, because if you don't, then they won't, because your actions speak much louder than your words. So motivation gets you started because you want a big reason why, but it's habit that keeps you going. And people say, how do you train 7 hours a day? I say, well, I just did. And I'm not I'm not throwing that away. I just did. I started off when I was like 2, and then it was 3, then it was 4, then it's 5, then it's this, and then it was just the environment. That's what it was. That's what I did. I didn't question it, as in, I don't want to do it because I'd just been taught. I'm like, this is what I'm committed to. This is my big reason why, and this is the environment. So this is what we do here. And then it just takes away the need for willpower and motivation, which are, resources which dwindle quickly and often aren't there when you need them.
This is ringing lots of bells from when I was...
Yeah, and it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because you could make it difficult, which is, I'm not going to have the glass of wine. I really want it. I hate running, but I'm going to make myself do it. Okay, there's some, So what are you going to do instead? Well, not have wine in the house. Make it friction. So you've got to get in the car, drive down the shops or to the pub and get one, right? So don't have it in the house, because that's the thing. So create friction for habits you don't want to do. And then make it effortless for habits you want to do. So get your gym kit out, laying on the side, and make sure that, the alarm is set, and that, your mate Doris is waiting at the door. Well, that's why PT is so great. Yeah. Because knock, knock, knock. They're the expensive knock at the door. You've committed money, resources, someone's time that you're respectful of. You're not going to suddenly go, oh, sorry, you could have had someone else. I'm not turning up. I've got a tummy ache. Yeah. Right? Lame. In your own words. Right. So you just go boom. But if it was, I'm going to go to the gym, for an hour, that'd have been a harder one for you to commit to, because you can get out of that. Yeah, exactly. Because it's just you and you. So you create that commitment, and you're already doing it. So the opportunity for all of us is to go, how can I make it a commitment and not rely on motivation at all? Because then it will just happen. Yeah.
And I have a good example of this, and I'm going to confess this, but I think it's a good, good illustration. So I think it was last week or the week before, I'd been here all day and I've been sat all day, and I have got to the point where I do enough, you'll be pleased to hear, movement now, where I then crave it and I want to move. Yeah. And I love my tennis, as you know, so that doesn't do the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. It's been raining. It's like the week where there was just rain. I didn't play tennis once. I think I've missed a PT because I was in London. And I said to my youngest, who's quite sporty, I feel really like I even want to go for a run or something. She said, well, why don't we go down to, we've got a little gym area in our carport. Let's go down and do a little workout. I was like, oh, really? And she was like, yeah, should we Goggins it? And I bloody the Goggins. So we went down, and I taught her how to do some rows with the TRX and stuff. And I started doing some like knee tucks where you hang off because I can't do pull-ups. And I did about 3, and I thought, fucking hell, this is hard. Can't be arsed. And I stopped because there wasn't a guy standing there counting to 12 to then do, several sets. And it was a real, like, I thought, I'll do something else. And then I thought, oh, I can't be asked for that either. And the fact that he wasn't there, and my daughter let me off quite easily because it was raining and it was quite cold and it was getting dark and we were a bit hungry. And I was like, I mean, better than nothing.
Better than nothing, but it's a good example, isn't it, of environment design? It's a good
example.
Yeah. And the social norm, it's almost like, oh, I'll let you off if you let me off. Oh, come on, let's have ice cream together.
Right.
Or a cake.
Yes.
I will if you will.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, we look for the easy way out, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Where's the dopamine coming from? Where can I get it easily?
Yeah.
No, I need to the circumstances and the other person. Accountability is really powerful.
Yeah. And I looked for the easy way out with the scuba diving, and I told you the story, and my brain was literally, and it was going hell for leather. Well, you nearly drowned as a child. You're perfectly entitled not to do this. This is not a useful skill. When there's an emergency, you don't go, quick, grab the scuba gear, let's, head under for half an hour. It's not useful. It's, and my brain was literally come up with loads of really good reasons to not do it. And in the end, I think the main thing was being an example to my youngest daughter, who was refusing to do it. But yeah, so doing the hard things, I'm really, I have 2 children now. One's doing A-levels. I have 3 children. Yes. That came out wrong. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I have a child doing A-levels, child doing GCSEs. They're both very different characters. And that hard slog of, cliche, but keep your eye on the prize. So my eldest has got an offer from her dream university, but she needs very high grades to get in. And she has dyslexia and ADD. So it's not easy for her. And she's a brilliant procrastinator. She can rearrange her pencil case 50 times, check a bloody phone, which I always say to, I didn't have that handicap.
Escape,
there was study or watch Neighbours. There wasn't really much else to do. Whereas you've got all this, I could watch Netflix, I could go on my phone, I could go on TikTok. And it's so difficult to, Ziggy's 3.5, so you're in a difficult phase, but in a way an easier phase. Whereas when they're teenagers and you can see the path they're going down, and you're desperately trying to steer them, but also allow them. And you say, well, I'm an adult now, I'm 18, so just leave me alone. I know what's at stake here. You nagging me, especially her father, does not help. But it's so, so difficult when we know how badly she wants this thing, but then also struggles to sit down and do the work. That's the other thing about parenting, is it never, you think, right, I've got that bit nailed. He's not touching the toaster anymore.
Exactly, yeah. It never gets easy.
And then different. They go into the next thing. That's a slight tangent there, but...
No, I think, just to, if I may, just like an observation there is that, we're searching, aren't we? And, we all remember where we're finding our independence and everything, and we want to stand on our own 2 feet, make our own decisions and our own mistakes and everything. And I think being asked questions of, what do you need? I mean, I remember when I was a teenager and athlete, we had sessions with a psychologist where it was really important that we communicated to those around us what we needed at crucial times of high pressure. So, for example, if my friends and family were calling me just before I was about to go and compete and asking, oh, can you sort tickets out? And, oh, I just wanted to say, good luck, or haven't seen you for or whatever it is, right? So there was this element of what do I need in that situation in order for me to be able to perform at my best? And then everyone was really clear. So, for example, I said to my parents, I'll call you, you don't call me, I'll come and find you, I'm in charge, this is how it is. So you do your own thing. And if I want to speak to you, I'll call you. It might be this day, but it might be that day. So there's real clarity. So they weren't thinking, oh, what do I need to do? How can we help Leon the best? They were like, right, is it? Because I was asked, what do you need? And so when you're in those situations where you're exasperated because you can see something happening, it's like, well, I've got to let you touch the toaster
Mm.
because then you'll learn. And I just need to make sure the toaster's not so red hot that you're going to, permanently disfigure your finger, right? So there's this element. So there's like, I mean, I couldn't ask you what you need, but that element of a young adult finding their thing is like, I deal with athletes all the time. It's like, what do you need? And then if they're explicitly clear, then you know exactly what you can do. And even if you can think, oh, maybe this, there's and another thing that worked beautifully for me was when my parents wanted to give me a steer, they wouldn't tell me directly because I would immediately just discount it because it was from them. They would find someone who I listened to. So it was like, I remember one example where there was a physio who I was being treated by, and he was like, he seemed to be really like informed of what was going on in my life and gave me some really kind of sage advice and a bit of a steer on how to navigate something. And I came out and I kind of told my parents, oh yeah, he was saying this and I think I'm going to do that. And they were like, oh, right, okay, good. Because when your peers become more important than your parents, and there's that dance, isn't there? It's like, who are you influenced by and how can you get that message across? So I think that instead of banging your head against a brick wall, which is, often what parenting is about, it's like, okay, can I be really clear on what that young person needs who's kind of created, like, and get an understanding of what is going on for you? Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Okay, well, what do you need? What can we do? Nothing. All right, well, if nothing wasn't an option and we could do something, what could it be? I don't know, it's good. You've got to kind of dance with I'm okay, and asking the same question a few times gently is often a good strategy. And if that first, who else can you bring into can you kind of like give them a bit of a nudge or an inspiration or show them that blind spot or whatever it might be? And I feel that in my experience, certainly personally and now professionally in different areas, that's a really good strategy because if you're nagging, then you're likely to get the antagonistic response, which is, right, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do extra procrastination now because you're telling me not to. You think that's procrastination? Watch this, and then
exactly.
You're in a battle.
Yeah. It's kind of like you think, I'll give them a good pep talk.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm the pep talker, and Grace was like, is this a mummy pep talk? It's like, yes. So you work with young athletes, so that's really helpful. And it's hard because they are.
Because you deeply care about them and what they're doing, and that's.
But they are young adults, and
as we talked about the adversity and making your own mistakes and going, okay, now I need to figure this out. Hard to watch, right? But that's where the real substance is. Yeah.
To finish up, what are you up to next? And where can people find you? We'll link your TED Talks so people can watch it because it is brilliant.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Mel. So that's, How to Manage Your Mental Health is the title of the TEDx 2018. And it fits in very well with this year's theme, Mental Health Awareness Week. People can find me. So reach out on LinkedIn. Really, I've got a few things coming up. I've got an amazing event in Turkey with a star-studded lineup of athletes and professional dancers. So if you want to train with Daley Thompson, Denise Lewis, Paula Radcliffe, Rebecca Adlington, and then Ian Waite and many of the Strictly dancers, we're in an amazing all-inclusive 5-star resort in Turkey. You fly into Izmir or Bodrum. It's in May. It's the opening weekend. This hotel is unbelievable, and the prices are much cheaper than you think they're going to be because it's like an opening kind of weekend. It's called like a wellness weekend or fitness weekend, but you go running with Paula Radcliffe at 8, you come back and you can do circuits with Daley Thompson, Denise Lewis, Colin Jackson, then you can do yoga with me at 10, then you can do rowing with Olympic gold medalist Vicky Thornley. It's like mega, so I'm really excited about that. So if people are interested, it's posted on my LinkedIn. And some of the other things, my executive coaching, which I'm really passionate about, but also the presentation mastery. There's this thing called glossophobia, which 75% of the population suffer from, apparently, and it's fear of public speaking.
Right.
And so we're doing something about that. So that's something that's relatively new. It's the Confident Club, so I'm newly part of that team and with one of my dear friends and speaking mentors. And then the Olympic Games this summer. So tune in if you want to watch any of the world's greatest athletes doing their thing. It's an amazing a chance to celebrate humanity as well as all things sporting. So I'll be live from Paris this summer.
Commentating on the diving.
Yeah, on the diving
Yes.
for the Beeb, yeah.
That weekend sounds amazing. When is it in May?
It's the second weekend in May, 10th to the 12th of May.
It sounds like you need to be pretty fit.
Well, look, yeah. So this is the thing. So you could all the classes are a part of it. So I would say just come and have a look, right? So if you did all of those, you'd be absolutely. I was going to say
running with Paul Radcliffe would probably kill me off. The first morning.
Can you imagine? Even just a couple. I haven't even
I've
listed
seen
the
her running
the whole program. I know.
When she ran the London Marathon. We lived in Canary Wharf, and she hurtled past us. I don't know what mile Canary Wharf is, but it's pretty far in.
It's far in, yeah.
And insane.
Yeah. So the vibe of the weekend is like it's a wellness launch. There's we're delivering the classes, but we're not going to be training Olympians, right? We're going to be training people on holiday, so it's going to be a fun vibe. And I know a lot of the people who are going to be there and delivering. It'll be a really fun event.
I'm going to check that out. I'll be on your LinkedIn.
Perfect. Yeah, please do. Yeah, well, I'll send you a message with the details. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.